Hello, my name is Daily Life, and today I'm going to bring you a another video. If you like what I do here, please like, share, and subscribe, and put any ideas for future videos in the comment section because that would be really helpful. I'm going to talk about my plans after leaving France, or what were my plans after leaving France. While I was thinking about what to do when I finished my time in France, I had a few ideas of what my next sort of adventuring journey part would be. One of them was to hike the canal paths of England. Um, this was inspired by I watched a YouTube set of blogs, for want of a better word, about life on the canal boat and his his journalists coming and goings. And what it appeared to me as there was a lot of that doesn't even make sense. There was a lot of infrastructure for canal boat users on the canal paths. Um, Toilets, water stops, rest stops, pubs, whatever it was, and I mean, they go through cities, but they also have a lot of countryside around them. So there is an element of places to be able to sleep safely, sheltered, for want of a better word. So that was one of my ideas. Warming up to that, to get to that place, my more recent, more sort of practice idea, if you like, before doing something that big, daunting, was to take 9, 10 days and hike along the coast to Southampton, where where my mum lives, and I started going with this idea, and I used Google Maps and other hiking software on my phone and sort of measured it all out, and it seemed to be um, 90 miles. And I thought to myself, yeah, 90 miles over 9, 10 days, that's 10 miles a day, roughly. And that's doable. So that was a tick in the pro column, in the yes column. And then I started looking at my gear. I started looking at this. I wanted to be as quick, as light, and as quick as not quick, but sort of not weighed down by my kit. So I spent a lot of time trying different backpacks, swapping different backpacks out. I went from tent to poncho to hammock, back to poncho, back to tent, and just trying to figure out how what was going to be easiest. Um, and then once I reached Southampton, I'd spend a little time with my parents, my mum, sorry, my stepdad, and then I would either get back on the train or do it on the way back. If I didn't do the canal path plan, another plan I had was walk round the coast of England, and the hike to Southampton would be a practice for that, to see how feasible it was, to make notes of any things that I could do better, things that I needed, things I don't need, things I don't use, problems to have on the way. Um, I'd want to get it all out and get it done on the hike to Southampton. I spent a long time with Google Maps trace, tracing the coast of England and seeing where the local places I could get water and buy food, because I didn't want to buy food as a big lump and have to carry that lump around with me. My plan was to buy my day's food or buy my 2 days of food, and so I'd have a very small amount of weight. And this also was feasible. There's lots of places, if you go east, sort of London as opposed to Devon, Cornwall, and there's a lot more places to eat and buy food around that side because everything is there's more sort of towns and cities that I'd go through as opposed to doing it westerly. Sorry. Um, so that was another idea plan that started to become reasonably feasible, and I'd always have backup plans like plan A, B, C, just to tide me over until I found what other things I wanted to do. Um, so a day came when I would actually set off, bags packed, left it not early in the morning, bag packed. Um, I walked from where I am now along the seafront in Eastbourne, which was nice. No problems. I got up onto the South Downs, Beachy Head. Everything started to become a lot more harder on the feet, more inclines, more I can't word today, more ups and downs. The footing from the very thin soil and rocks was very obvious. The wind was a factor that I didn't take into account in the planning stages. There was a lot of things I didn't take into account during the planning stages. The most obvious, the biggest flaw with my plan was still thinking that I was 20 years old and that I could behave in the manner of a 20-year-old. Um, on the first day, I did just shy of 30 miles on the first day, and which, yeah, that's great. It's good to know that I can still do that. But if a third of your journey is gone on the first day, and you're supposed to be in the field for 9 days, you've I've probably fucked the planning somehow. I it's part of my military training, I think, that when you've got a long walk ahead of you or whatever, you just plod through it and you just get it done and you can almost blank out the pain. Not I couldn't really think if I was in pain or not when I was walking, but I have a high tolerance to pain. And only when I stopped, we'll get onto that. So yeah, doing more miles on the first day than I should have done. The cold wind, that was a factor that I was oblivious to, I think would be a better word. it's not like I thought about it and said, "Oh no, fuck it, it's only wind." It didn't even the wind chill factor. That's what I mean. It didn't even occur to me, and so all the time I was walking, my body, my muscles would be generating heat, and where I was walking, the cold air would drain the heat from me. And only when I stopped, can't think where I stopped when I noticed that. I think it must have been Seven Sisters Country Park. It was getting very sort of cloudy dark. It was that time of day where you're running low on sort of energy, like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, afternoon, sorry. And yeah, it started to sort of dawn on me, which wasn't a huge problem. The first problem I encountered that I kind of had planned for was where to stop to sleep. A lot of these places along the seafront, they have little bandstands, shelters, whatever it is, but there isn't a lot of sort of little copses or little woods or sheltered areas that you can stop in and not get moved on or hassled by youths or whatever it is. And so I would sort of look around when I would stop for water or stop for food and see, oh, there's nothing around here, so I'll move on. And I just kept on moving on, looking for that ideal place. And only when it dawned on me that I was on New Haven seafront, and that is a New Haven docks, whatever it is. That is a fucking dark and dismal place. Nothing good ever happens in New Haven. Seaford, to that mind. Yeah, both frighteningly dismal and just all concrete, all shitty shops. Nothing welcoming to a person who views can see outside of the box. All the bandstands, all the shelters were facing the sea, obviously, and I didn't want to sleep in one of those and be just chilled to the bone by the incoming sea air. So I just plodded on, unaware or unbeknownst to me, my feet had started to swell. My boots that I was using were fitted. I think I'm a size 10. My boots were a size 10. I was wearing socks, had insoles in. They weren't particularly new boots, and so the inside of the heel was going a little bit, and my feet had started to swell. This caused me horrific problems when I stopped and when I sort of recovered. My toes looked like they had been in a car accident. They were all battered and bleeding from being sort of constricted within the shoe boot. The back of my heels were dreadful to look at. And so, yes, the swelling of my feet I didn't take into account. I was hydrating, I was eating what my body craved, as opposed to just eating stuff that I knew would be better for me. Because sometimes you just have to do what your body tells you. And when I think, where was I? New Haven Coast Guard Lighthouse. There's a place on top of a hill where there's like the Coast Guard lookout and control. the sea outside of New Haven. I got up there through there's like a woodland park type place, and I thought I could get a nice to shelter from the wind within all the trees and the shrubs and sort of the lower layers. While going all through there, the due to the erosion and the, the sea air, the wind, the cliffs, all of that type of stuff, there's a few sort of sharp drops, not into the sea, but one of these drops, I went down badly and it affected my feet, which wasn't the greatest. I hadn't really I hadn't really planned for that type of mechanism of injury either. So by the time I had sort of gathered myself, recovered, started getting on to put my shelter up for the night, I found a place which was suitable. I hadn't it didn't cross my mind whether this woodland was used by doggers, because that would have been a definite surprise. So as I was setting up my poncho, bivy bag, mat, sleeping bag arrangement, it took me 3 attempts to put this one poncho up. Bearing in mind, I'd been in the army for 9 years, and living under ponchos was one of the things that you do. I have been out the army for X amount of years, so it's not as practiced in recent years as it could have been, but it took me 3 times to put it up. During the second time, I was crying for some reason. I don't know whether I was in my pain had caught up with me, or I was just truly tired, or everything was on top of me. I don't know. Oh, I missed out my first outdoors poo. Um, Pet backpedaling before getting onto the hill where the lighthouse Coast Guard place is. There's some New Haven seafront dock before the docks, before you see all the McDonald's and the roads by the station. There's like ruins. There's like castle ruins or something very ruinous. And I went in there when things started to feel like tired and the weather was looking a bit grim, to see if these were usable to use as sleeping cover. They weren't particularly, but I needed to try the facilities. So I got on with my first outdoors poo for how long have I not pooed outside for? So long. And I'm not going to go into every detail, but I had to get into a weird position so I didn't have so when I had my pants around my ankles, I wouldn't poo in my own pants, which to this day I still find funny. So I was in a particular position, and then I picked it up and with a dog poo bag and wrapped it up and all that type of stuff. And that instant, I felt like a king. I don't know why. I think it might have been the expelling of toxins. That feels really good. But just the pleasing comedy relief of having a poo outside really sort of brightened my day. I don't know, can't really explain it apart from it being funny. Um, so back to me trying to put my basher up. I eventually got some semblance of a shelter up. I put all my gear down, put my thing on, and something didn't feel right. I couldn't place what it was. I laid on my mat on my sleeping bag under this tarpaulin thing, and my feet were hurting, my back was hurting, I was cold, I was hungry, and that time when I was in this little sheltered woodland was the first time that I'd ever felt truly alone. I had come away from France, where I had been for a year and a half, staying with my brother, staying with various workaways, staying with Verity and Richard and Darcy and Sebastian and William for a good long time, and coming back to England, staying with my dad. And then now, I had the feeling of being alone was so alien to me. Not scary, but it was just a feeling that I had not been preparing for. And looking back on it now, I do wonder how the people who find themselves being homeless on the streets due to whatever crisis they have that drives them there. I do. It's not feelings. I do feel sorry for them, and I pity them, and I understand how. I mean, my one couple of hours on rock bottom in the middle of the woods in a really shit town. Obviously, that's nothing compared to the people you see out on the streets in winter, lying next to cash points in a sleeping bag. I'm not comparing myself to them in any way, but I couldn't. I don't know if I'm strong enough now to be able to do that. And so I think I actually had another cry. It might have been the same cry. I don't know. Decided to take my boots off at that point and my socks, and that was a bad idea. I looked at my feet, and I have, in my entire military career, I've never had my feet look so bad. And I just thought, okay, that's going to be difficult. I finally got my boots and my socks back on. That was a painful, painful 10 minutes. I packed all my stuff up. I think I might have had another poo in that wood as well. But I felt better when I was on the move again. So I got down off that hill, keeping going west towards Southampton, and it wasn't getting any easier. It wasn't getting any warmer. I was still hungry. I was still tired, and it was getting dark, and there was no place to sleep comfortably outside around New Haven docks. So that was a bad sort of place for me to stop in hindsight. My feet, I was in so much pain with my feet that I had to call it. I had to call it quits. So I looked on I switched my phone on, switched Google Maps on, and looked for where I was. And so I went to the nearest like street with a shop or somewhere where a taxi could get me. Called my dad, I think I might have been crying on my phone to my dad, which I haven't done that for a while, and called a taxi, drove me back to Eastbourne, and I was so disappointed and so ashamed of myself. I think my pride was hurt because I had been planning this for for a long time, and having to stop because of things that I didn't foresee really sort of dented my pride. Thought I was this great logistician, and clearly time has taken its toll on me, which I was also not prepared for. I got home, had a shower, had some food, went to bed with some proper doubts about my about myself and about my abilities. My feet were fucking in tatters, but looking back and the thoughts that I was thinking before I went out, that little journey to Southampton was supposed to go wrong. The whole point of it was for things to happen then, so they didn't happen on my big walk around. And so a couple of days later, that sort of cheered me up. That made me feel a lot better, which is good. So yeah, I've made a list of all the things that went wrong, all the things that I didn't account for. The biggest of which is still thinking I might have the mind of a 20-year-old, but I haven't got the body of a 20-year-old. So things I used to do back in the day, I can't do, and that's going to be a massive hurdle to get over, or not get over, but just to understand. But this isn't going to stop me. I'm I'm planning my next things as I talk to you now. Got many plans. Well, I've always got many plans, but whether they actually happen or not is another thing. But yeah, that was my brief look back at the 9 days to Southampton, air quotes. But yeah, I hope you like it. I hope you understand a little bit more about what I'm trying to do. I don't know. Um, yeah, that's it. If you like what I do, please like, share, and subscribe. Um, I've been Daily Life, and I will speak to you another time.